Everyone, and welcome to the Stephanie Stevens Show and Pronoun TV. Today on my show, I have Miss Shari Prichard, a very good friend of mine. She's going to talk about something that's very intimate and more personal, that things that are going on in her life. We are here to educate and inspire others from Sharis Story. Now, the reason we decided to do this show is because Shari decided that she had something on her mind and she really wanted people to understand what she was going through and actually what this disorder she has is called. Now, today we are focusing on ritual abuse. Ritual abuse. I've heard of it, but I haven't actually met anyone with this issue. Now, Shari has decided, with the many other issues that she has, that we are just going to focus on that issue. Now, last year I met Shari at a place called Sound Times here in downtown Toronto, where they focus on helping people with all different kinds of issues, and some issues that are deeper than others. Now, I just want to say, how are you, Shari?
I'm fine. I'm doing good. I can't believe that I'm doing better at the end of this year than I was before.
Well, I'm glad that you invited me into your lovely home here. And, it's exciting. The sun is out, actually.
Yeah.
So at least that makes us feel a little bit better about,
Everything.
this gloom and doom.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, when I first met you, we hit it off right away. We hit it off right away.
Yes, we did.
And I like the fact that you were always candid and honest and just straightforward. And those are the kind of people I like. Now, today on the show, like I said, we're going to talk to Shari about ritual abuse. Now, where were you born at?
I was born in Oshawa.
Oh, small town.
Yeah, about 45 minutes east of here. 100 years back in time.
Oh.
The medical system.
So you have any brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have two brothers. My youngest one is passed. The one on this little guy here, and he's passed. And my other brother is this guy. This is his book, and he.
So you have three. You have two brothers.
Yeah, and I have a sister here.
Okay.
And my brothers are Johnny and Shane, and my sister is Nadine. And,
So, So where are your parents?
Well, my mother passed about a year and a half ago, and I just found my stepfather again, and my other stepfather has passed, and so yeah, I got one living. He's a stepfather, but he's the actual father, perpetrator in my life, and it's kind of like the perpetrator needs the victim, and the victim needs the perpetrator to heal in a thing like this. Ultimately, if it could look like that, it's easier, but it's not that situation for a lot of people. It's kind of complicated, but we'll get into it later.
Okay. So today on the show, we're going to focus on Shari's story. The real idea of the ritual abuse, because I've heard of people cutting themselves for one reason or another, and Shari actually has the scars to show that she was actually doing this to herself, cutting herself for whatever the reason was, whether it was depression or anxiety or the fact that she was reliving the situations that have occurred in her life. Now, most people in life have issues. We all have issues. But I think that this is, now that we have the pandemic, this is more of a personal issue, mainly when people are now suffering behind closed doors. So these things are probably coming back up because these people who used to access these programs that probably kept them balanced or kept them sort of in tune with just checking on them, just making sure that their health and well being was being monitored and looked after. And now that we have the pandemic, these things are sort of lacking in a lot of ways for a lot of us. Now, like she said, her brother died a few years ago.
That's the one living. This is
okay.
the one,
This is the
yeah.
one living, and this is his book. So it goes to show you
Called
that
Johnny Be Good.
Johnny Be Good.
Yeah.
So now that we're getting a little bit of the idea of, Shari's story. I want to say, being in Toronto, we have I have a lot of friends from small towns that have a lot of stories like this, because in small towns it's probably a lot harder for people to deal with certain things, because you don't have access to stuff that we would normally have in big cities, or in we're a place that has lots of programs and stuff, places where you can reach out. So let's get into Shari's story with what is it that you were your family working people? Were they working people?
Well, they were both in the sex industry.
Okay,
But,
that's working.
Yeah, I want to say about ritual abuse. I was in a hospital in Colorado for a psychiatric reason. And it was there were many women there, and it was for DID. It was for dissociative identity disorder, and I did that back when I was in my 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And but a lot of those women there had been satanically abused. Okay, now ritual abuse, satanic abuse, it all sounds the same. Even when I saw books of it before, it was like they'd have, different figures that didn't look anything to do with what, my life was. But ritual abuse looks like something that happens to a child in the same way over and over and over and over again. How it goes down, what it looks like, and the effects of it.
Okay, so what do the doctors say? What is this? What is the actual definition? What does the doctors say ritual abuse is? Why are you actually cutting yourself? What I mean,
that's a side effect of it, and it's a side effect of a lot of psychiatric different situations that people are in. The cutting for me was a way to, people would think, oh, they hate themselves, but it's not that. It's not that I hate myself, It's that, oh, let me feel, because it's kind of an endorphin rush. And it's better than crying for 3 and 4 days. But then you're cutting yourself and you're leaving yourself scarred. Like, I gotta go with that for the rest of my life. And different things. And I have an aunt that looks like a road map. She's everywhere. And it's about relieving the pain. And, I've also had problems with bulimia and anorexia. And the bulimia, for me and for a lot of women, I think people forget. They think it's all about, well, yes, that is, a goal. But the big thing for me was throwing up my feelings. I didn't know how to deal with my feelings. I couldn't deal with the pain. And cutting the blood made me feel like I was human. At least I had an insides, because I just wasn't connected. And I hurt so bad. It was like, oh, I have something to show for the pain. And I didn't show other people. I'd hide them, and as soon as they started to go, I'd do them again, because I felt like I didn't exist without them. I just, and it was between me and me. And but then you start to do it harder, and it gets out of control like any addiction, and then you end up with some major scars. I'm lucky that I stopped where I did, and the way I stopped was the therapist told me, get a pen and a piece of paper and draw it out. So red and black, scribbled out the page. And I had a big roll of paper and I pull it down with these markers and draw it, and I'd use the marker on my arms. Because at first, and that was very good for me. It made me, okay, I'm all right. There they are, even though they're not real. And people would, I have to hide them, and they're just for me, and they're not as good, but they're enough. Mm-hmm. Because was trying to simply stop the behavior.
So I want people to understand that we're understanding the actions from what happens after the fact. But what actually brought this on? What made you start cutting yourself? What made you need to see this
Frustration.
Frustration from what?
Pain that was anxiety and pain that I could never seem to, no matter what I did, other than drugs, deal with to get, it was one hell of a ride,
Is this physical abuse, or is this just mental abuse?
Well,
just
okay, I'll describe it a little if you like.
Okay,
my brother and I, we lived in a suburb. Actually, we moved to Mississauga, which was more of a suburban situation, but we lived in Toronto first, and suburbia after Toronto is like we climbed the roofs here. We were wild kids. We were wild, like we weren't really taken care of, except I'm the oldest, so it was kind of like a happy, fun childhood as far as when we got out, and not really having any supervision, left you pretty free, to have fun all over. So, we kind of went sort of wild, but we moved to Mississauga, and my mom had to keep us home for a few weeks to calm us down and let us finally go to school. And my mother was a rageaholic and a pills, and she was a stripper, and she'd had the same childhood basically as me, except I didn't get into the sex industry. But what the abuse looked like were major beatings for me and my brother and my sister. My dad had a belt. He'd be angry of his day at work, and he'd take it out 30, 40, as many as he could with everything he had on three little children that were the size of your knee, and it was just wicked. See, there's a child abuse, and it's a thing, but there's also horrendous child abuse, and that's a different thing, because you get things like complex post-traumatic stress. Post-traumatic stress is when it happened once, okay, and you're dealing with it. But, if it happened, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, Thursday, Saturday, Monday again, like three and four times a week, your body remembers. Like I go into this circle and backwards and forwards. It's what I do to make myself calm. And I sitting up here, sitting still, is work.
Okay.
But
So basically, you're saying that abuse at home, the father coming home, and the mother is always enraged, always finding issues with you guys, and sort of abusing you in a sense of, well, mentally or physically, because she's stressed out that the husband's not doing this or things are not doing that. And usually it comes down to, the whip has to come down on somebody. So sometimes it comes down on the children. Now, so you're saying that this is part of what helped trigger the ritual abuse. Now, when was the first time you cut yourself?
That wasn't really. There's a piece missing.
Okay.
Okay. When I was 11 years old, my father went and he bought me a bottle of pink champagne. Okay. and he took me to a motel room,
Mm.
and he wanted to take and did take naked pictures of me.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the deal was that I gave him a blowjob, and that he went down on me and tortured me until I actually gave him what he wanted, a bodily reaction. And you know, I mean, this was the ritual. Okay, you know, it also was like I would have to mentally get ahead of him, okay, to keep myself from some control, instead of just having him pounce me. I'd have to sort of say, well, okay, but later. You know, and no, 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 as much, until I knew that he would, no, wasn't going to be enough, and try to control it. Anyways, it started, when my mother was on the road dancing, it was like, he'd show up in my room. I'd try to jump in my brother's bed and, get between the wall. And my poor brother, there's nothing he could do. He was younger, and he'd basically drag me up to their room. And I had to go through this as a way of life. It started at 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, I got a gun. Okay, and through a miracle, he didn't show up. And he never came back again, somehow. It just ended right there. And for the rest of my life, he never bothered me. And it was over.
Well, there's no excuse for parents abusing their children. And now, in any sense, but all being in all fairness, I want to say to you, at least you had the courage to eventually take some sort of control of the situation, or try to take control of the situation to keep it from happening any longer than it did. And sometimes
this here control, though, is the kind of control that gets women that have been through this sort of thing, that don't think that they can do anything else, and that sort of control later on is used for the sex industry, or things like stripping, or hooking, or I mean, women from abuse go two ways. They go either over sexualized, and they get into the sex industry because they have that control. Or, they go to therapy, they learn about what's really going on with them, and they give up the control, learn about who they are, and get better. Now, this here is pretty much for me the past. I mean, I did that when I was 30. I'm 60 now. We're both like 60. Huh? It's a new 60.
Yeah, the new 60.
Right?
We still got it.
We do.
Now, when you were talking about I'm going to go back to your father, and after you decided when you got a gun and he didn't show up and all this stuff, you must have felt relieved that you didn't have to use the gun.
You have no idea. I mean, I know I would have gone to jail. And in truth, my brother and I, as kids, we were constantly trying to figure out a way to bump him off. Seriously wanted to bump him off. But we had to find a way that he wouldn't notice. So we go into his workbench and try, no, he'll notice that, and today there's, anyways, so it was a thing.
So this is, I understand that you say you started doing the cutting at 30.
No, at 12, I started doing
the
it
cutting
as a way to
relieve.
Yeah, and to sort of be a lot,
to feel alive.
Yes, it made me feel like I had something extra, that the pain showed. You know, there's so much pain on the inside. I mean, I was very, hesitant to show any other people, but, that's what it represented, the pain on the inside. And the bleeding was like, the old days, they used to bleed people because of the endorphins that make you feel better. And this is not a way to cope. It's an addiction. And it's a bad addiction.
Did your mother know you were cutting yourself?
Yeah.
And what did she say?
She said, "Quit it." Stop that. Don't be doing that. You know your life. You think you're so hard done by. It's like, yeah, okay. Little do you know. The things I'm not telling you, so you don't kill yourself. Because she take a lot of suicide attempts, and that was why he'd say, if you tell her, she'll kill herself. And I saved her life many times, alcoholic drama, and 3 and 4 days of watching her until I'd know she was gonna, and watch her, take them and then make the call. And it was quite a life for us kids, foster homes and group homes. And for me, at the end there, they wanted to lock. Well, I was already a ward of the court. We were being, what we did wrong. All that was ever noticeable was what was wrong. Nothing, all the side effects, but never in the 70s anyway did they dig for the problem.
Now, so after all this happened, and the ritual abuse, you did seek some help.
Yes.
Now,
after I left home.
Okay. So, after you left home, did you have any communication with your folks after that?
Well, it was a funny thing. My dad left my mom, and then my mom went to AA, and I love my mother very much. I'm the one that I was 12 and said, "Mom, why don't you look up this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous?" I want to talk to them. I'll talk to them. I made the call, and here, Mommy wants to talk to you. And so she started AA from that moment. She went for like years and years, and at 17, boy, this is where it gets you, your bad childhood and not enough love. You go out into the world, you have a relationship. The relationship, the guy does something, he cheats. Your life is over. How do you deal with life skills? How do you deal with, he's just a jerk? No, I'm not good enough. What's wrong with me? All these insecurities, every insecurity that you could possibly have. No life tools at all, except maybe a job in a factory that you're stuck with. You get kicked out of school, which is lovely, but then you're out on your own. I've been anyway since 15.
That's a show for another time.
Well,
now,
at least I've kept the roof over my head.
Yeah. Now, when you look at the whole picture, when you went to the doctors, well, first of all, I'm sure you probably went to the hospital. Did you ever cut yourself too deep to where you had to go to the hospital?
Once.
And what happened when you went there? Like, did they put you in a, what
Well,
happened?
they wanted to give me stitches, but you'll never believe it. I was scared of the stitches. It said no, because I needed to control my own pain.
So, did they put you in a mental institution or something?
Not, believe it or not, no, but I've been, not for that, but I've been in many mental institutions since I was 30 years old. I had a psychotic break, and I paid for therapy for years before that. But I moved to the town where I was born, and I want to find my roots and quit paying for therapy and just go face it all, and I couldn't handle it. They told me not to. They said, "You'll have a psychotic break." Can you swear in this? Can I swear? So I said, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah.
And then it happened to me, and they took me into the hospital. I was there for about 3 months. They said I was a difficult patient because I was unruly. So they basically tied me down. They gave me too many drugs that I couldn't walk or talk, and they shoved and swept me under the carpet.
Now, a lot of people out here will probably say, well, she's just whining and all this stuff about, sometimes we have to talk about
We
these
got to
things.
go through the pain to get to the other side. We
Yeah.
just do. There's no easier, softer way except through.
You have to just go through it
Yeah, you do.
and to learn. Now, like I said, the show is here to help educate and inspire others. Shari's story. Now, what I like the most is that she's been very candid about what happened. She didn't have to tell us about what her father did to
I
her.
couldn't talk like that.
She didn't have
for
to
10
tell
years.
us about the ritual abuse, because to us, most people don't even care about what somebody else's problem is. Most people think, oh, it's the government's problem to look after these people who have these kind of issues. We all have these kind of issues behind closed doors. And now that the pandemic is here, I think people are suffering a lot more. How are you coping now with the pandemic?
I have a lot of friends from where Sound Times and other places, and I know for me, I can't get sick. I don't want to go and do another 3 to 4 months and wherever. I've been in every hospital that you can think of, and then my now it's CAMH, but that would mean a 4-month tour, and I'm on good medication. The thing is that I stay on the medication. I need, that's going to keep me level. It took me a long time to find my recipe, and I found my recipe. And, I stick with it. Before I used to, I'm not taking it, I don't need it. People say, why do you got to take that? You don't need it. You don't really need it. So then you listen to them and you go off and the season, and yours changes and you're not, you're nuts, and you got to go back in and get back on it all over again. And, last time he was right. The pills are my life. You can't get high off any of it, but I can keep even, and it's not even to avoid my feelings. I'm bipolar, So if I do get sick, I'm up for days and days until I go psychotic, and I don't go in. They take me in because I'm noticeable. I mean,
Well,
sick.
the good thing about all of this is that you've taken control of your life.
Yeah.
You're doing really well. Because I remember the last conversation we had, we both were in precarious situations, and now we seem to have taken control of our lives, and things are going better. And you look better, and I can see that you're dealing with, regardless of how much medication you're taking, and you're doing really well during this pandemic. So that tells me in some of our most difficult times, and when things are hard for a lot of even people who thought they were sane, being behind closed doors constantly in a house when your children would probably be going to school, or your husband would be going to work, or you would be going to work, and dealing with the world itself helps us cope with things in ways that keeps our lives kind of balanced. Because if we're busy, we don't notice this, and if we're doing helping with the children, we don't notice this. But being in the house continuously with mental issues, well, no matter whether it's the ritual abuse or whether it's alcoholism, sex issues, all these things, we as people have to take control of our lives, and you've done that. And
Well, the first way that I did it was to reach out to every problem. If it's ADHD, then look it up on YouTube and see what are my tools. If I have ADHD, what are my tools to get better or to make it easier to live? Study and never be proactive in your own life. Get a therapist.
That's smart.
Therapists have therapists. It's 1 hour that's yours. just about you, and it's, it's all, she cares about you or he cares about you for that 1 hour, and people should have that. It's a real thing that can, you get a lot of relief, and you come together. You're not alone, and that's the thing. As long as you feel seen, they see you, a therapist, somebody, a friend that knows that you're at home and you're alone. The real way I coped with it, honest to God, I looked at it and said, my dad done 2 years dead time, so I'm gonna do this standing on my head. Just to see if I could be that tough. And I look at it as, this is my cell. What a lovely cell I have. So I'm grateful.
Yeah, well,
as in this pandemic,
the good thing you said that I really liked. I like the fact that you said that you reached out.
Yes.
That is something we all have to learn how to do. It took me a long time to learn how to reach out, to be brave enough to do that. So I say to everybody out there, if you need help, no matter what it is, and mainly during this pandemic or at any time, reach out to somebody, a friend, a doctor, the people in your church, some people in your neighborhood that you can trust, or people that you hang around with, that maybe can guide you towards somebody that can help you out. Mainly your doctor usually is the first place you could probably go, and that way you can get the right advice on what you need to do with dealing with your issues. And now that we're all closed in, we're not sure.
One last thing.
We're not sure where we're going to go after this pandemic. We're not sure where we're going to really go after this pandemic. So, I just want to say is that I am glad that Shari shared her story with us. Now, she's going to close us off with a couple of things.
If you feel so depressed that you don't even want to get out of bed, I say, YouTube, how does a person get out of bed when they're so depressed, right? Whatever it is, how does this, how to, there's answers, for everything. And you never have to be alone, because there's people going through it too. But for the people who are not used to that aren't mentally ill, and that have worked and are not used to staying home, I'm just can tell you, take it a day at a time, because, as they say in a 12-step program, which I've done before too, any man can fight the battles of one day.
Mm-hmm. And the good thing about all of this, Shari, is I like the fact that you were open and you were honest. You didn't have to tell us this. You didn't have to share your story. But I know there's some people out there that are suffering just like you and many others, and just trying to get through all of this, plus what's been on their plate for many, 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 many years. And the only way we're going to get through all of this, no matter what it is talk to each other, love each other, try to understand each other. Just try.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the first step, is to try to understand each other. And for the people that are out there, like Shari said in her story, reach out. Reach out. There is hope, there is help, and there are people
there is life after abuse, life after every type of abuse. Beautiful life waiting at the other end, of the pain. And I'm living proof of it.
Amazing. Amazing, my friend. Amazing, my friend. Now, I just want to say Thank you guys so much for joining us here on the Stephanie Stevens Show. Shari's story is very inspiring, and hopefully it will help some of you out there. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Stephanie Stevens Show and Pronoun TV. If you would like to share your stories with us, email us at misstoronto@hotmail.com. That's MISSTORONTO @hotmail.com. We're located in downtown Toronto, and we just want to say thank you guys so much. Stay strong
And stay cool.
and stay blessed. Thank you,
Yes.
everybody.